Hi, my name is Matt Ferland. I'm here with Otis Technology today. We're going to talk about some turkey hunting, one of my favorite things to do. We're going to talk about gun cleaning. We're going to talk about products that people use, things to do, techniques. If you're new to turkey hunting, you want to get into it this year, maybe you can pick up some things to do. And if not, you're a seasoned veteran, we'll probably hit on some things that you forgot about. I'm not going to tell you any of my spots, but I'm going to try to help you get some of your spots to go and how to approach that and what gear you're going to want to use throughout the season. How to care for that, and just what things you should be using to go through it. So the first thing we're going to talk about today is preparation for turkey hunting. It's been a long winter. Everybody's kind of cabin fevered out, and that's why I like turkey season so much. It's the first chance to really get back in the woods. I've done some shed hunting and whatnot around, but this is when you're back hunting again. So turkey hunting, the first thing you really want to do is scout. That's like key number one important. And then scout. And then the third one is scout. So I hope I drove that home. Scouting is the most important. You can't kill a bird somewhere if there's no birds there. You just can't do it. So basically you want to go knock on farmers' doors, ask permission, watch the fields. You're going to see a big old boss Tom, hopefully out in the field at noontime someday, and he's spinning around out there with all the hens. That's a spot you want to be. You're going to watch to see where he's coming from, where those birds are roosting, where are they feeding throughout the day. Things like that. So scouting is super important. And it builds your story, right? So when you're first looking at those birds and you see a really nice tom with a big beard, that's the one you want to get. I want to learn everything I can about that bird. Where is he sleeping at night? Who's the hens he's hanging with? All of those things. What other jakes are in the area that are going to screw me up and try to come running in once I start calling and have my decoys set up? Just so you know the whole process, the whole story. And then you're going to work on that big old boss tom. And he's probably going to hang up with his hens. There's going to be things, but you catch him the right time, the right day, and he's just going to come running right into you. So get permission is super important for those farms or state land. If it's on state land, that's fantastic, because then you don't need permission. You just go on there. You're going to get your turkey permit. You're going to get your license, all those things you're going to follow. Each state has its own guidelines for what you need. If you're really just getting into this, you're going to need to take a hunter safety course. They're good for all the states once you take yours and get certified. So the first thing you're going to need when you go out turkey hunting is a shotgun. Some people do use archery equipment. I suggest if you're just going out first couple times, first season even, use a shotgun. It's a little bit easier. You'll get a better harvest with that. There's some things we'll talk about as far as sighting in and like that. But the first thing you need is a good shotgun. You don't have to have a 3.5 inch for turkeys. A 3-inch will be fine. A lot of people now are going to lighter calibers, 20 gauge, 16, even 410s. In some states are making that legal. We've got some loads now that carry a little more inertia or kinetic energy that can reach out a little farther. But I would say, honestly, a 12 gauge is your best turkey gun. That's what you're going to want to go get. Whether it's a pump, a single shot, a semi-auto, doesn't really matter. Most turkey hunts is one and done as far as shots go. They're pretty quick. So get yourself a good shotgun. Camoed up would be great. If you don't, well, you know, you can get tape for them. There's other things you can do. Turkeys have fantastic eyesight. They'll see you move from 200 yards away. So camo is another big thing. You want full camo head to tail. You want to put face paint on or a face mask in general is the most important thing with that. Your hands, I have, bright hands in the sunlight. They move, they see that, the game is over. So those are some things that you want to talk about. As far as gear, this is basically it's an immature gobbler. This is a product where you pull a string and the fan will actually move. I'll take a ground blind and put this out, maybe set up a decoy with a hen, 15 yards out, 20 yards out. You pull the string. It kind of looks pretty ratty, and that is actually by design. It has been beaten on, it's been kicked, everything else, but you do is, if you're going to build one of these, you take your 3 or 4 side feathers on the tail, you turn those out, and you'll see a jake. When you look at a bird, a jake will go, these feathers look taller and drop back down. A tom will be straight fanned all the way across. This is a tom fan, but what I did was turn these and glue them in that way, and that shows it's a 3/4 strut. And it says to a big boss tom, this bird's not as confident. He's fanning, he's trying, but he's not super confident that he's the guy in charge. So by doing it this way, it gives that boss tom a little bit more encouragement to come in and tell him who's in charge, and that's when you're going to get your shot. So it's kind of a neat trick you do with that, and you move the tail 3-4 times, call a little bit. You're going to have a hen set up maybe 5 feet away from them. And that Tom looks and says, he's trying to breed one of my hens. One of my girls is in trouble. I got to go. And he'll come running right in, hopefully. That's the game plan. Some things you can do. A turkey vest is great. It keeps everything together. They usually come with a handy seat. In turkey hunting, you're running and gunning. You're calling into a mountainside. You're listening for where they gobble. And then you're trying to get close to them within like 100 yards. And then you're going to set up, sit down, and start calling. So a seat on these is super important. A lot of them have a pocket in the back where you can carry other decoys. This is Henrietta. Henrietta has widowed probably 60 or 70 birds in her lifetime. This was one of the first things I got in my family sporting goods store. I've actually re-sewn her several times. They pop up. It's an old Feather Flex. Henrietta's been through the wars, and she's won every time. So the paint's coming off and everything else. I can't bear to get rid of her. I have other new decoys, but Henrietta always goes with me no matter where I'm going. A lucky charm, I guess. Not for the Toms, but for her. As far as calls go, the first call everyone should get, I would suggest, is a box call. And why you want to go through this if you're a veteran and you've been doing turkeys for a long time and you say, yeah, I know all this. Well, go through your gear before turkey season starts, because there's nothing worse than getting out first morning and you realize now your bands are broke because they dry rotted over the winter hanging in your closet. And now your call, you don't have the proper tension with the rubber bands to hold it closed when you're walking, they'll make a noise. So it's real important to go over these things. Also, just re-chalk. If you've got any dings or anything, you want to sand those out. Just make sure your calls sound real good. This one is an actually 1960s Lynch. Again, it's been through. I kind of like the retro stuff to go through and do that. But a box call, you can gobble, you can cluck, you can purr. So it's a very versatile call and really simple to use. The one disadvantage is most of the time you have to use two hands. So now you got to put the call down and pick up your gun. So then a lot of people will go to a mouth call. Diaphragm is what I use mostly. I carry a bunch of them. They all have different sounds. But it's important to look. I keep them in the fridge all year long. My wife doesn't like it, but the colder temperature keeps the latex in there. This is just straight latex. There's cuts in them. It's spread across the frame. That gives them different sounds. I keep in the fridge because that latex doesn't get dried out and break. So like the week before, I'll take these and I'll put them in like a little cup of Listerine. Just let them sit in there. It gets all the taste and everything off it from being in the fridge all year and from last year rolling around with dirt, anything else. It gets it all up there. You start the season with nice fresh. There's all different brands of these. I use Keystone a lot. I like those calls. But there's a bunch of brands and they all work. You've got to try different ones. If you're just getting started, you're probably going to feel like you're going to choke when you put one in your mouth. It's in the upper side of your palate. You've got to learn to blow that. It takes a lot of practice. So it's something to do during the winter before turkey season starts at practice. Don't just buy one and go to the field with it first day. You'll scare everything, including the cows. There's other pot calls or slate calls, people call them. These basically, you have this, you have a striker. These are super popular too. There's glass ones that work when it's wet out. There's metal ones that'll go when it's wet. The metal ones have a higher frequency rating. Frequency is important to turkeys because generally the higher the frequency, the more apt they are to respond to it, or you can make them gobble, shock gobble them. There's things like that. So I like to have all kind of different calls represented when I'm going out, just so some days this call is just not going to do it. Other days it's, ringing the dinner bell. So different calls like that are important. There's gobbler shakers you can do. Different, I think I have one here. These guys have been around forever. You go like that. It just simulates a bird gobbling. In the morning when you go out, if you think you know where they're roosted, you gobble at them, you'll hear where they're roosted. Some people use woodpecker, owl calls, different things like that. So you're just trying to locate them and get in before they actually fly down off the roost and start their day. So if you can get into that little zone within 50, 75 yards, you've got a really good shot of taking one of those birds. So I would say if you can, a turkey vest is super handy. There's so many pockets. You keep your face mask in here, you keep a spare jacket, your bottle of water, and you're good for the whole day. This one is a original Otis from back in the day. One of the first Pro Staff Otis ones we had for that. So once you get your gear, Next thing you do is you've got your shotgun. Well, how do I clean that shotgun? What do I do? What do I need to do with it? So always when working on a shotgun, we're gonna make sure safe and unloaded. This is a bore reflector. A lot of people get these in our kits and never actually know what they do, but you put this in, it's a safety flag. So anybody that looks at this gun now, if I'm at a range or anywhere like that, looks at it and says, oh, that gun is safe and unloaded. So it's a really good thing to use. Don't just toss them out. Even to keep it in your gun cabinet or something, it's important to have those for safety. That's the #1 thing with any firearm is safety, making sure it's unloaded. So now we're going to talk about, you've got your gun, we're prepping for the season, what we're going to do to clean your gun prior to going out, taking it from last fall. Also what you need to do with one of our ripcords through the season, and then how to clean your gun and prep it for storage over the summertime. Basically, at Otis, we suggest you do a 3-step process as far as cleaning your bore of your gun goes. That's going to be with a wet patch. It's going to mop everything out. Then you're going to go to a bronze bore brush, pull that through, breaks up any carbon or any buildup in there, fouling. Shotgun specifically, you're going to get a lot of plastic buildup from the wads, so you're going to want to pull all that out, and then dry patch. You're going to take out your flex cable. First step in the process is going to be your slotted tip. So you're going to screw that in. We're going to put our patch on. If you want more information on how to tie a patch, please see the linked video. Then you're going to put on your patch saver. This is important because this forces this patch out against the bore of your shotgun all the way down. Without that, you'd need like a 2x2 foot patch to really get tight in the bore. So that's kind of why our kit is unique. One of the things is the patch. So you put that in there. We're just going to tie this up real quick. Slide it down, and I always just add 2 or 3 drops of our FP10 from Shooter's Choice. It's a lubricant, but it also helps clean and loosen things up in there. You'll get a lot of wad residue and fouling in your barrel. I'm going to move the old Robo Chicken here. Get that out of our way. Grab your T-handle, pull that through. And you can actually see how much we just pulled out of that. So you'll get a ring like this. You'll pull 3 or 4 patches through. You'll see it start loosening up a little bit. Then what you want to do is pull your bore brush. Same process, screw that in. Take your T-handle off. Feed it back into your bore. So why is this important? Why do we go breech to muzzle? Well, you want to pull everything out of your gun, not push it back into it. So breech to muzzle is important because all the copper fouling, wad, everything that's in here, you start shoving that back in your action, you're going to get a malfunction eventually. So that's why that's important to pull breech to muzzle. Again, grab your T-handle. Put that on there. Pulls that out. Probably 3 or 4 times doing that. And then you're going to go to a patch. Once you pull it through, you're never going to get a completely white patch as you pull it through, but there'll be a point where you get where it looks pretty good to you. If you're going to store the gun for a little bit of time, just put 2 or 3 more drops of solvent on there, lubricate the barrel again. It just stops from corrosion or anything like that going on. So that's prepping your bore for that. One thing I like to do also, we have our FP10. You can lubricate your slides, your bolt carrier, things like that. I like to use our dry lube. Anybody that's into waterfowling, the who's who, we all know this is #1. It's the best stuff out there. You don't have to break down the gun to do it. You put it in there. It doesn't leave a film on there. Why is that important? It doesn't get dust or buildup if there's nothing for it to cling to. It also doesn't freeze. So I hunt diver ducks in late November on Lake Ontario. It gets cold, icy, freezing. If you have some solvents on here that are wet, they can freeze up, your action won't work, or it slows your gun down quite a bit. You can actually hear the difference in when you're chambering. So dry lube, super important. Everybody keeps this in their blind bag, keep it on your boat, whatever. It's awesome. It'll clean out some stuff as you spray it in there. So I'll just hit the slides with it up in there, the bolt carrier, bolt face. Just make sure everything's got a lube on it. And maybe you hit this every 2-3 times out, just spray it with it again. You're not gonna over lubricate with it. It's a great product and it's saved many of hunts. So you do that. So now your gun is ready to go to the field. It's important to clean every day when you come back from the field. I like to use our Ripcord product. What this does, it's basically all those processes that we just did in one. You just run it through. It has beads in there that you can actually do this if the gun is warm. It's a Nomex material. It can go up to 700 degrees. It's not gonna melt. And basically the balls that you see in here are just pushing themselves out into the bore again to clean that. When you're turkey hunting, you're on the ground, you're rolling, you're sitting up, you're running from spot to spot. So there's a good chance you're gonna get mud in the end of your barrel, you're gonna get a stick in there, you're gonna get grass, all these things. You wanna make sure when you go to fire the round, there's nothing that's blocking your bore so you bulge your barrel or anything like that. It's a lot of force coming out of a shotgun shell when it fires, so you just wanna make sure you got everything out. Just take a ripcord, pull it through. You can hear it's got pretty good pressure on it, but I know there's nothing in that bore now. So now tomorrow I can go out before light. I know the gun's gonna be good. Wait for the sun up and hopefully you get your gobbler. At the end of the season, we're gonna repeat the same process, a wet patch, bore brush, dry patch. But then if you're gonna store your gun, you wanna put 4 or 5 little drops on your wet patch or on your patch, make it wet, pull it through. That makes sure you don't get any corrosion in your bore when you're storing your gun. So now we're done cleaning. We're gonna go out. I've got to sight in this gun. And you say, wow, sighting in, it's not like I got a scope on there or something. And it's called patterning your shotgun. And then why is that important? Because you want to get as dense a pellet pattern. Shotguns shoot pellets out, hundreds of little pellets in a shell. You want to get those in about a 20-inch circle at 20 yards, and you're going to count how many pellets you get. And different shotgun shells will pattern differently in every gun. You've got a choke tube in the end of your gun. This is what a choke tube looks like. This constricts the end of the gun and makes the pattern tighter or smaller. It broadcasts the pellets in a bigger area. So you would unscrew this from your gun. You put some of our shotgun choke tuber cleaner in there. And what these do, the wads go through here every time that you shoot. And the wad is what the cup that holds the shell or the shot. That starts building up inside the choke tube. So you want to make sure those are clean so you're getting consistent shots all the time. You just screw those back in. Most guns have choke tubes now. Some of the older ones are just straight, whether they're modified or full choke. But extended choke tubes work great, and there's a lot of different companies out there that sell some pretty good ones. So when you're patterning your gun, what I've found is I try to get 3 or 4 buddies together. We all buy a different box because they are pretty expensive now. Turkey loads have gotten very technical, and their prices are $30 to $50 for a box of shells. So we all buy a different box. We take our guns, we go, we sight, we shoot one, see what that pattern is. Now I borrow my friend Jim's, grab one of his, boom, shoot his. Is it good? Is it better than mine, or was it worse? And then so on down the line. We all round robin the shots. Whatever brand shoots the best in your particular gun, then that's the one you go buy to use for hunting. It just saves you from buying 10 different boxes of shells, and you get to try each one. So it's just a good little tip to do with that. Once you count the pellets, you get your best pattern possible. The tighter it is, the better. The most amount in like a 20 or 30-inch circle at 30 yards, or 20 yards, you want a 20-inch circle. That's the one to go with. One of the things you'll want to do when you're aiming at a tom, you don't want to shoot him when he's strutting. His neck is folded in, he's kind of protected. You want to wait for him to stretch their head out a little bit, and don't just aim for the top of the dome. A lot of people make the mistake of putting the bead right on their face. They want to beak shoot them, you want the slow-mo video, whatever you want. You're safer with always aiming by the wattles. And why is that? Well, your shotgun pattern is a ball of shot coming out. It's all little pellets. So if you're aiming in the middle of my hand and you put the bead here, half of that is going to be above the turkey's head. So you already missed half of your shot that's going at him. So if you aim a little bit lower, then you have more possibility of hitting a vital area in the head and taking it. Don't body shoot them, because then you're just ruining the breast meat in them, and you want to eat that. In a deep fryer, in the oven, whatever it is, you want to eat it. So try to just, from the wattles, you're good right there. So one thing I want to go back to real quick, I touched a little bit on 3.5-inch shells for the shotgun, and this one can run 3.5-inch. Shotguns are chambered 2 3/4, 3-inch, or 3.5-inch. What that means is the length of the shell that can fit in there. Why is that important? Well, you can't run a 3.5-inch shell in a 3-inch chambered shotgun. I use 3-inch mostly. I used to use 3.5. I guess I'm getting old, but I just don't need to pound my shoulder the way I used to. So 3-inch, I can kill any turkey with. It's not a problem. I usually try to get number 5 or 4 shot. On the box, you'll see like waterfowl will use 2s and 3s. Turkeys, you want to use 4s and 5s, and it's the size, diameter of the BBs that are coming out of the shell. So the bigger the number, the smaller the shell, or the smaller the pellet. So number 9s are very small. You'd use those for skeet shooting, doves, things like that. 6s you generally use for like pheasant hunting. One thing you'll see is high brass and low brass. Low brass is more for target shooting. You could pheasant hunt with it. They're not a terribly tough bird to kill, so you could use them. But most of the time you want to use high brass for hunting situations. They have a little more powder in them, so they put the brass up a little higher just to absorb that energy coming out and get it going forward. So that's the thing. So your gun will be stamped with what the chamber size is, whether it's 2 3/4, 3 inch, or 3.5 inch. You can shoot smaller. You can't ever shoot larger. So if you have a 3 inch, you can't shoot a 3.5. If you have a 3.5, you should be able to shoot a 3 inch or a 2 3/4. That being said, if it's a brand new gun, don't get yourself frustrated. If you go to the range, the first thing you do is take a box of trap loads that are 2 3/4 and you fire, and the gun doesn't cycle. There's not enough, I'll get a little technical for a second, drams of powder in there. That's the amount of energy that fires off when the gun fires. It won't cycle the gun because it's got to get broke in, and it's not strong enough to cycle that yet. Even though they say you can shoot 2 3/4, it's going to take you a box to break in that gun. So don't get upset. Don't call the manufacturer yet. Give those guys a break on the phones. Just run a box through. It's going to jam a couple of times. Work through it, and then the gun will be fine. It just has to break in. So, but you can't run longer shells through that. So we always want to remember safety is your number one most important thing when you're out hunting with your friends or at the range. Never sweep anybody with your gun barrel. And what that means is I don't point my barrel directly at them when I'm walking with it. Even if the gun is unloaded and safe, in your mind, a gun is never unloaded and safe. It's always dangerous. So make sure you don't sweep anybody. If you're on pavement, make sure you're not pointing at a 45 to somebody so it can skip and hit them. There's all sorts of weird things that can happen. So make sure your gun is safe and unloaded. Use your safety flag, your bore reflectors. Make sure you have that in there. Make sure the gun is unloaded. When you're done hunting, take it out. A lot of state laws, you can't put it in your car when it is loaded, so you don't want to get a ticket or a fine for that. But just keep in mind, safety is number one. When you're carrying a gun, walking with somebody else, generally speaking, you can carry it straight up away from them, or if you're in the lead, you carry it out in front of you like that. Just be aware and cognitive. Once that shot leaves the barrel, you can never get it back. I can't say that as important as it is. You'll never get that shot back in your barrel. Don't ever put yourself in a situation where you feel bad because you shot somebody. Terrible thing to do. So you just want to make sure safety is number one. Keep your safety on until you're ready to shoot, always. If you enjoyed this video, please like and comment below. The more comments we can get going together, there's things that I've forgotten this, obviously, that you know, that I don't. I'd love to read them, and maybe we could share some information and all become better hunters. If you like the content of the video, please go to our YouTube channel and you can see other things that we've done. Remember, a clean gun is a happy gun, but a dirty gun is a happy hunter.